Hello, everybody. This is Gerald Salenti, and it's Wednesday. Once again, very honored to have with us a man of men, someone, I don't have a lot of them anymore, that really knows about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and how they're robbing us of both of them. Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, thanks for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Gerald, my dear friend. Thank you for having me.
Judge, you have an article coming out tomorrow. This is one, again, I say this all the time. You got to read these articles. The one you have coming out tomorrow is so important. It's called The Myth of Emergency Powers. And it begins with the Constitution of the United States is a law for rulers and people, equally in war and in peace, and covers with the shield of its protection all classes of men at all times and under all circumstances. No doctrine involving more pernicious consequences was ever invented by the wit of man than that any of its provisions can be suspended during any of the greatest genesis of government.
This is the quote from the Supreme Court of the United States rebuking Abraham Lincoln, of course, after he had died and after the war between the states was over, for arresting people without charge, and if he did charge them, trying them before military tribunals. It's the famous case of Lambden Milligan, who spoke out against the war in Ohio, in the North, was arrested and convicted of disloyalty and sentenced to death by hanging by a military tribunal, filed a handwritten petition that he himself put in the mail and sent to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court voted unanimously. A Supreme Court appointed by Lincoln voted unanimously to release him and said there is no such thing as emergency power, whether it's war or peace, whether it's good time or bad, whether you're an American or not, whether you're an enemy combatant or just an ordinary criminal. The constitutional protections apply to everyone wherever the Constitution itself applies. Why do I write this? I write this because President Trump has been threatening to declare a series of emergencies and then to argue that on the basis of those declarations, he somehow has more power from some source other than the Constitution. And I fear that he might do that. Various governors did it, and they got away with it during COVID. I cite the egregious examples of Governor Murphy of New Jersey, one of the worst of the worst. But I fear that Trump may try and do this. Now, he has declared an emergency at the Texas-Mexico border, but he has yet to claim that he has some extraordinary authorities from some source other than the Constitution to exercise there. But that's probably coming.
In the Trench Journal, that, once again, we're on the same page. The cover of the magazine this week is, I don't know if you saw it, it shows you the dictatorial beliefs of the people in power. Again, we're on the exact same page over here. The politicians are zookeepers. They treat us like animals in a cage.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. Look at Trump's nonsensical and absurd suggestion about the United States buying Gaza.
This is from the Trends Journal in our economic update that just went out yesterday. On the Trump card side, which is the king of Trumps, never in modern American history has a newly elected president changed the game, called the shots, taken over power, signed as many executive orders in such a short time, just 3 weeks, as has President Donald Trump. And
that is historically accurate, whoever wrote that statement.
No, I did.
I fully agree with you, and I appreciate you writing it. Of course, to make matters worse, he is attempting to change laws on his own. Listen, if I could rewrite the Constitution, I might write it differently, but I can't. And I took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend it, just like he did. If he doesn't like the 14th Amendment because it grants birthright citizenship, and it's been consistently been interpreted that way for 150 years, he can move to amend the amendment, but he can't ignore it. He took an oath to uphold it. If he doesn't like the Department of Education, I don't like it. It's not authorized by the Constitution, but Congress enacted it. If he wants to get rid of it, he's got to get legislation through Congress. He can't dispatch Elon Musk to get rid of it. That's not consistent with the laws and the Constitution as we understand them and as they operate.
So I want to read something to you that you may have some knowledge about, and it solidifies what you're saying. Quote, "It is a central premise of this work that the federal government has never taken seriously the concept of natural rights, all the while paying lip service to that first principle. I argue that the government believes that it, and not the creator, is the source of human freedom, and it alone can decide when to expand personal freedoms and when to contract them. And it believes that it can restrict freedom by majority vote or judicial ruling or executive fiat." You know who said that?
I fully agree.
No, wait a minute, Judge. You know who said that?
No.
No? Judge Andrew Napolitano.
Well, no wonder I agree. I mean, history is replete with examples.
This is one of the judge's many books. And when I say that this man knows about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the facts of how we're losing our freedoms and what we have to do to get them back, it's not just empty words. And you look at the size of this thing. And it's one book after another. So I'm sorry, Judge. I want to just make it sure.
Oh, no. You don't have to be sorry. You're making me blush, but thank you very much for the kind comments. Imagine if I had said, no, I disagree.
No, but I'm making it clear when I say every week that I have you on, and there's no one that really knows this information more than you, all the different books that you've had, that you've written, and the facts that you have down, it's not just empty words. And that's why I wanted to make this clear.
Well, the public needs to recognize this. I mean, we all lived through a horrible time, which Roger Ailes once said to me will never happen. You'll never see personal liberty suppressed in the United States. The police will revolt before they did it. And, you know, he died before COVID happened, but he was wrong. The police complied. Governors made up laws. The president didn't interfere. The Congress didn't interfere. The courts didn't interfere, even though they've all taken oaths to uphold the Constitution. So unless the public recognizes that our rights come from our humanity and not from the government, and demands that government respect that, we are just like the people on the front page of this week's Trends Journal. We are like animals in a cage, being let out only when our masters want us out.
Yep. And again, you're right about this little clown boy Murphy, little gutless little jerk, a little boy of nothing, the governor. And again, one piece of crap after little Godson Gavin Newsom over there in California, Witless Whitmere, or every damn one of the. Oh, how about the little boy up here, the daddy's boy, Andy Cuomo? My daddy Mario would be renaming the Tappan Zee Bridge after my daddy. Oh yeah, lock down the state. Oh, and now he's running for mayor in New York City, and it looks like he's going to win.
Does look like he's going to win. Well, he's got a weak candidate, the incumbent. And of course, if he gets the Democratic nomination, he'll surely be elected. Yeah. You know who's running for the Republican nomination? Curtis Sliwa.
Yeah. Listen, I know Curtis, and I used to be on his show. He doesn't listen to anybody. He only listens to himself. When he ran the last time, I tried to help him, donated money. And again, I used to run major campaigns in Westchester County. I designed and instructed a course, American Politics and Campaign Technology, how to run political campaigns. I only taught it at St. John's University. Hey, but what the hell do I know? I don't know anything. Don't go nowhere.
Curtis doesn't take advice well.
Nope. I used to be on his show. I know him for years. But anyway, going back to what you've written over here, it's so important because as you talked about this clown Murphy, and he did it, all the other governors did the same. He claimed that somehow he could interfere with the exercise of basic human freedoms. Going to church, going to work, shopping for food, operating a business, assembling in groups, and traveling on government roads because he declared a state of emergency. One clown after another. And where were the people to fight back? Every damn state almost did this.
Very few people fought back. Texas and Florida, the governors refused to do it. In Florida, they actually had a lesser spread of COVID than in the lockdown states. I haven't seen the stats for Texas. It was reprehensible what we lived through. It was probably, I don't want to sound like our friend Alex Jones, it was probably a dry run for a more aggressive suppression of civil liberties in the future. They now know that they can do it. Scare the people, and they'll give up their freedom.
Yep.
They'll trade freedom, the reality of freedom, for the illusion of safety.
You know, I had a peace and freedom rally when everything was locked down. Several hundred people came. I am one of the most hated men in Kingston. How dare I do that when the government told me to lock down and stay home? And you write over here, you talk about another one of Lincoln's critics. In an unanimous decision cited hundreds of times, the Supreme Court rejected the concept that emergency somehow creates or increases government power. The court condemned emergency as more pernicious than any other stated assault on the Constitution. The condemnation is still the law of the land today. No, it's not the law of the land. COVID changed that. They could do anything that they want. Where was the fight back against this?
There were, in the COVID era, numerous fightbacks in state courts. They all lost. The judges all caved. Maybe there were one or two, but they were judges who did the right thing, but they were overruled by higher courts. Remember those truckers in Canada, where it was even more oppressive than in the United States. Those were very, very dark days. I don't want to see us go back to them. But when I see a president, even one with whom I agree on some matters, say, I can declare an emergency and that gives me more power, that statement is terrifying and must be exposed and must be challenged. That's why I wrote this piece. I know it's going to aggravate a lot of your friends and mine who are cheering Trump on, but he's got to follow the law and the Constitution just like anybody else in government must.
I'm going to tell again, I agree with a number of things Trump does. Particularly getting rid of the big government. And I also, I agree with McKinley, who he talks about with tariffs. You know, what do you want? Cheap labor or cheap products or higher wages? You know, but of course, there are issues of that. I'm totally against his support for throwing the Palestinians out of Gaza and giving Israel, what they giving, he just sent them another 7.3 billion
with a B, correct.
Yeah, $billion worth of weapons to keep the slaughter going and 2,000-pound bombs to keep demolishing the place. So I'm totally opposed to that. And you write here, again, go to Judging Freedom, by the way, everybody. The people the judge has on, there's nobody like this. JudgingFreedom.com. It's a site that you don't want to miss. And we having coming up, Judge?
A big admirer of yours, Phil Giraldi, at 3 o'clock today and at 4 o'clock today. From midnight in Moscow, the great Pepe Escobar.
Wow. Wow. By the way, we publish a lot of Phil Giraldi's articles that he writes every week in the Trends Journal. He's a real man.
He's fearless and gifted.
Yep.
How many CIA agents have a PhD in American political history from the University of Chicago?
Yeah.
One, Phil.
Yeah, and he's a real man. You write, if the government officials could declare an emergency and thereby be relieved of the obligation to defend the Constitution and the rights it's guaranteed, then no liberty is safe, you wrote.
What do? We alter or abolish the government. That's what Jefferson argued in the Declaration of Independence.
Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. You know who wrote that?
No.
Thomas Paine.
Mm.
And that's what we have right now.
Correct.
We are nothing more than plantation workers of Slavelandia. And this is going to me, the most radical government we've had in modern history. He's going to do everything he can to take power away from the people and impose it by himself.
I agree with you, and it's a fear that we need to warn people about and expose when it happens, even though there may be pushback.
Yeah, and it's again, the article that you have, Judge, oh, by the way, when you're talking about, again, this is brilliant. It's a brilliant article. And everybody, again, it's called The Myth of Emergency Powers. It'll be published tomorrow. You go to Judging Freedom for more information. And you talked about what happened up in Canada. You know, when the truckers were having major rallies, by the way, fighting, I was zooming in, speaking at those rallies and supporting them. And that little clown boy called what? A state of emergency up in Canada.
Right.
And look at what he did to the truckers, stealing their money, putting them in jail, and robbing them of their rights.
The police literally siphoned gasoline out of the truck's gas tanks. It was reprehensible. Right? I don't even know if the Soviets ever did that. It was reprehensible.
Yeah. So we're going to be heading to a very, very trying time. And again, check out the books by the judge. Suicide Pact is one of them, and he has many others. This is a man of real consciousness for the freedom and liberty of we the people. Judge, thanks for being on. Thank you for all that you do, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Gerald. All the best, my friend.